Have Red Bull actually solved a problem that they've had for 7 years? As we know, one of the trickiest seats in Formula 1 is that second Red Bull seat alongside Max Verstappen. Red Bull have struggled to find a driver that can compete with Verstappen and help Red Bull win the Constructors' Championship since Daniel Ricciardo's shock announcement he would leave Red Bull for Renault in 2018. Since then, they've gone through 5 drivers, and as of 2026, they're currently on their 6th. So is Isack Hadjar the driver Red Bull have been searching for all this time? So I think in today's video, we should answer the question, have Red Bull fixed a 7-year problem? But before I start, if you are new around here, then please drop this video a like and hit that subscribe button. I think it's fair to say Isack Hadjar had a pretty solid Australian Grand Prix, a nice debut to get the ball rolling for his Red Bull career. I think the one thing that does help is the new regulations. It's a complete reset. These cars have changed a lot since last season. They're completely different to drive. Everyone's sort of getting used to them, so it's not like one driver has the advantage over the other. Everyone is pretty much singing off the same hymn sheet. And straight away, that is a bonus for Hadjar, the fact that he's coming in at Red Bull at this time. Not only that, there's been a lot of change at senior management. Helmut Marko is no longer there. Christian Horner is no longer there. Of course, Adrian Newey is no longer there. So it's a new era for Red Bull. And I feel like now that all the old personnel have gone and some other personnel have come in, I think Hadjar might just get the time he does need. And because of his solid debut in Australia, especially after qualifying, a lot of fans are now thinking Red Bull have found the answer to all their problems. Well, their second seat problems anyway. And the one thing Red Bull want from their second driver is someone that's not necessarily challenging Verstappen, but somebody who can be there to pick up the pieces if Verstappen has an issue or if Verstappen has an off day, which of course, as we know, is very rare these days. And someone to help Red Bull win the Constructors' Championship, because that's something that's been a big letdown for them for the past couple of years. They have had the car, but they haven't had the second driver. So after the Bahrain pre-season test, the pecking order was predicted to be Mercedes the fastest, Ferrari the second fastest, Red Bull the third fastest, and McLaren the fourth fastest. So let's have a look then at Isack Hadjar's results over the Australian Grand Prix and see if that correlates to where people think the car should be. In FP1, he finished in 4th place and he was 8/10 off the pace. In FP2, he finished in 9th place and was 1.2 seconds off the pace. And in FP3, he finished 5th and was over a second off the pace. In Q1, he finished 5th and was 5/10 off the leader. In Q2, he finished 5th and was 7/10 off the leader. And in Q3, he qualified in 3rd place and was 7/10 off the pole position time of George Russell. So qualifying is more of an accurate representation to see where the car actually is. And it's about right. You know, finishing in 5th in Q1 and Q2, he did qualify in 3rd in Q3, a very good lap indeed. I feel like he did qualify in 3rd because the Ferraris did encounter a bit of an issue as well, so maybe they could have been up there, and the fact that Verstappen did bin it in Q1, and if that wasn't the case, I think Hadjar would have been 4th, maybe even 5th without that Ferrari issue. But that's where he's been all weekend, more or less, so he's being very consistent. Then for the Grand Prix, he had a really good start and almost took the lead of George Russell, but he didn't have enough battery to get the move done. He did maintain 3rd position, but then dropped down to 5th position after he got overtaken by Arvid Lindblad and Lewis Hamilton at turn 11. But then on the start-finish straight to begin lap 2, he got 4th position back. By lap 6, he's already 7.2 seconds off the race leader George Russell, but as we know, Red Bull don't really have a car to be fighting the Mercedes and the Ferrari just yet. So he was doing a pretty solid job. He had, extended the gap to Arvid Lindblad, but then his race ended very early on lap 11 when his engine expired. Now, he did say on the team radio he was expecting that to happen. A very disappointing end to what was a pretty impressive debut. He definitely would have scored points. He was in a bit of no man's land at the time of his retirement. But with the VSC coming up, and obviously he was one of them who caused it, then he had another one with Valtteri Bottas. There was 2 VSCs. So maybe without his VSC, there would have been that Valtteri Bottas VSC. Maybe he could have done a different strategy. Maybe he could have got, jumped the Ferraris because ultimately they squandered their strategy. So that could have been an extra position or 2. So without that engine failure, I would say he's definitely scoring points on his Red Bull debut. So he's qualified 3rd. He probably would have finished about 4th or 5th around that mark, but that's much better than what the other drivers have done in the past that have been in his position. And speaking of previous Red Bull drivers, let's have a look at all the other drivers where they've qualified and finished on their race debut for Red Bull since Pierre Gasly signed in 2019. Pierre Gasly made his Red Bull debut at the 2019 Australian Grand Prix. He qualified in 17th place and he finished the race in 11th place, but he was one lap down. Albon took over from Gasly from the Belgian Grand Prix onwards in 2019. He qualified in 14th place but had a very good race by finishing in 5th place, and his teammate Max Verstappen DNF'd on lap 1. Sergio Perez was next up and he made his Red Bull debut at the 2021 Bahrain Grand Prix. He qualified in 11th place with Max Verstappen on pole position, and he finished the race in 5th position like Alex Albon did. Jump forward a few years and Liam Lawson is next up. He made his Red Bull debut at the 2025 Australian Grand Prix. He qualified in 18th place, however he DNF'd from the Grand Prix after he spun off in the tricky conditions. He, of course, only lasted 2 races, and next up was Yuki Tsunoda. He made his Red Bull debut at the 2025 Japanese Grand Prix, where he qualified in 15th place with his teammate Max Verstappen on pole position, and he finished the race in 12th position, where Max Verstappen won the Grand Prix. So on that evidence, Hadjar has had the best qualifying out of any Red Bull debutant since 2019, and in the Grand Prix, if it wasn't for the DNF, more than likely he would have matched Perez's and Albon's debut of 5th place, maybe even 4th place, could have even got on the podium, but of course it's just, ifs and buts at this point. But here's the question, will it last? Now, this is where I think a lot of people are getting ahead of themselves, in my opinion. Yes, he has a very good debut, and to be fair, it's off to a really, really good start. But it's only been 1 race and there's still 23 races to go. If you look at other Red Bull drivers, none of them really got off to a good start. Albon and Perez did a very good job in the Grand Prix. And out of all the drivers that Red Bull have had since Ricciardo, Perez has done the best job out of all of them. He certainly lasted the longest. I think he lasted about 4 or 5 seasons. With Perez, he had a really, really good start in 2022 and in 2023, and then, some degree in 2024. But come race 6, race 7, sometimes even earlier than that, his pace would just fall off and it would just be completely nowhere. So that's why I'm always like, maybe be a bit more reluctant to see where Hadjar's going to be in 6 or 7 races time. Because yes, these are brand new cars, brand new regulations, and it's going to take some time for a lot of these teams and drivers to get their head around, how to work these things properly. Not to mention the development race will be cranking up in a few races time as well. So once Red Bull have decided where they want to go in development, as the season progresses, that car is going to get more and more tailored towards Verstappen, which of course you're going to back Verstappen. And once that happens, that's when we could potentially see Hadjar go the other way. Now, people are saying Hadjar's driving style is a lot similar to Max Verstappen's, and that might be the case. But also, you have to cope with the pressure, because once people know where everyone is, and say Red Bull do bring some really good upgrades in a few races time, and then all of a sudden they have a car to challenge Ferrari and challenge Mercedes, they're going to want both their drivers fighting, fighting all the cars at the front. And if Hadjar can't cope with that pressure and he can't cope with that demand all the time, because like I say, it's only been 1 race, there's no championship on the line just yet. Everyone's in the same boat really. But once everyone settles down and we know where people are, and like I said, if Red Bull do bring some upgrades, and which I think they probably will, they might make a massive leap forward, which they have done in the past, then maybe that's when it's crunch time for Hadjar. Is that when he's going to crumble? Is that when he's going to go backwards? Also, he could prove a lot of people wrong, including myself, and actually be there with Verstappen and actually be that second driver that Red Bull have wanted for all this time. So have Red Bull fixed a 7-year problem? My answer is not quite yet. Yes, he's had a very solid debut at Australia, and yes, he is a good driver, he is a quick driver, we all know that, but so are the other drivers at Red Bull. Like Gasly's not a bad driver, neither is Albon and Perez and Lawson and Tsunoda. None of them are bad drivers. It's just when you go alongside Max Verstappen, he makes you look silly. And not only that, that car is such a tricky car to drive because Max has such a unique style, and that's why he is one of the greatest of all time. And I think the fact that people are getting so hyped up about Isack Hadjar in that second Red Bull seat proves how much Red Bull have been struggling as well over the past few years with that second driver. I think probably the start of 2024 was when both of them were both fighting at the sharp end of the grid. Maybe round 2, round 3 was the last time, and then since then they've just went backwards, both in car development and that second seat as well. So we need to give Isack Hadjar time. He is a good driver, but let's not get ahead of ourselves, because if he does fall off the pace, those people that were saying, oh my god, here comes the second coming of Max Verstappen, are going to be on his back because he's not performing well enough, and where's these results from the start of the season? He has to grow with the car, he has to grow with the team. And I think maybe having a year off, you know, say Red Bull aren't nowhere near the pace and nowhere near the sharp end of the grid, say they do stay third fastest and the miles ahead and miles behind of Mercedes, that could be a good thing for Hadjar. Give him a season at Red Bull, see how things work. 2027, who knows, Red Bull could have a car to challenge for the championship. Maybe that year is needed for Isack Hadjar. Maybe this is what, you know, a blessing in disguise almost for Red Bull. Obviously, I know fans won't agree with me on that, but I think long term that might be a good thing for Hadjar and Red Bull. But let me know your opinions in the comment section below and answer the question, in your opinion, have Red Bull fixed a 7-year problem? Like I said, my answer is not just yet. But guys, thank you so much for watching as always. If you are new or anything, then please drop this video a like and hit that subscribe button as well. If you want to go and follow my TikTok as well, link down below to that. Much appreciated if you do go and drop me a follow as well. But as always, I'll see you all in the next one. Bye bye.